Speaking of beards.
Speaking of beards, this is Artcasters, episode 289. Welcome to everybody in the chats. I noticed that Frank already made a pretty good riff on our topic, saying, "Is this a food episode?" And maybe, because we are going to talk about like hunger versus desperation, and I think it'll be a really good topic, and hopefully pretty pertinent to people who are doing art and stuff, because we are all trying to hustle our stuff, and that line is like a line you have to dance as a creative. So, all right. So before we get into the topic, we have a nice round table of people. So we'll just make the go around, starting with Scott, and let everybody know where to find your stuff and where to find, all your great stuff and where they should be on Free Comic Book Day.
All right. Here, let me see if I can share this thing. I got a little graphic here. We'll click on that. Yeah. So, I gotta hide that. There. Hey. How do I get rid of that?
Quick, screen capture. Screen
tab. Press tab.
What is it?
Tab.
I thought I hit tab. I'm hitting tab. What's going on?
It
I wasn't selected on Photoshop. That's why I'm clicking tab. I'm like, what's going on? But I was still selected. I still had my other monitor selected. Anyway, so yes, I was sorry for the delay. I will be at Surprise Comics this Saturday. It is Free Comic Book Day. So if you happen to be in the area, stop by. If you happen to be in Arizona and you want to make a trip out to Surprise, they're going to do some prizes and all kinds of stuff. I'll be there along with a few other artists. We'll be doing sketches and all that stuff. So Free Comic Book Day is like the biggest day for any comic book realtor or comic book fan. So you definitely want to, if you can't make it out to Surprise, just go to wherever you are, your local comic book store, and get out to Free Comic Book Day and pick up some free comics. And don't stop there. Support the store and buy some stuff there while you're at it. And if you're in Surprise, you can buy some sketches from me. I'll be doing commission sketches, remarks, all kinds of stuff like that. So that's all I got to talk about today. So come and check it out.
Awesome. Okay, and let me see. Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna try to go in order of the screen. So I guess I'm next up. So you should go pick up a copy of Two Stories, Book 1, which is my first graphic novel. There might be a second coming up, possibly in the year. That's not Two Stories related, but for now, get my first debut graphic novel on Amazon. It's a story about faith and mental illness that's handwritten, hand lettered, and hand inked, and you can get it for like I think it's still under like $6 and free shipping on Prime. So it's a steal, and it's a heartfelt story about autobiographical story talking about all sorts of fun, awesome, and heavy topics. So very, very much in the line of like outlaw and indie comics. So if you're an outlaw indie comics fan, go get that. It's black and white goodness. All right, Cory, where can everybody find your work? Cory Kerr, our third co-host.
You can find me at corykerr.com. And I wish that I could show you guys the thing, but I can't show you the thing. But it's the music video is done. And now it's just up for festival awards, and so there's just the festival page. But at some point, I'll be able to show this to people publicly. I don't know when, but yeah, it's not mine because the client paid for it. So, but anyway, so yeah. So if you want to see like behind the scenes stuff on this one, you can go to corykerr.com, and I'll be doing some of that on YouTube and Instagram.
I love it, and yeah, some of the things, like in particular, that frame that Cory is paused on right now is some pretty incredible animation. It's full of a lot of tricks and things. Like, look at the nose of that. It straight up looks like just full 3D modeling. And you guys should be subscribed to his Instagram just to see some of these tricks that he uses in After Effects. Like, they're incredible. It's because this is all After Effects, which is insane.
It's all cheating. Every single frame of this is a cheat.
Well, all animation is cheating.
Right, but
but
this falls into that category.
Yeah, but it's such good cheating, and you guys should check it out because it's like you could learn a thing or two from checking out Cory's stuff. I know I've been pretty mind blown by it. That's cool. I can't wait till we can see the full shebang.
Yeah, me too. I'm annoyed that I can't show everybody.
I'm acting like I haven't necessarily, like I might have seen it.
I haven't sent you a link.
Exactly. But it is really good. And whenever he puts that live, it'll be good. But be following Cory so you can get those little snippets of animation tips and stuff like that. All right. Initially we were going to have just Jim on, and I threw out the idea, and we thought, you know what, this would be a good like overall roundtable discussion. And of course, we were like, who's amazing to discuss things with? And of course, the creator of Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots, Gary Hodges. So Gary, where can everybody find your work? Where can they read your comics? And can they even get a hold of your comics now? Are they completely out? Like, do you have any comics left, Gary?
As a matter of fact, I'm totally sold out right now.
Yes.
Which is kind of cool, but also kind of lame if you're interested in checking out my comics, but also kind of cool again because I'm sold out, and that kind of adds a weird exclusivity to the club. I'm working on right now a limited edition variant pulp cover for my latest comic, D vs. M 1997, and once I get that art done, I'll be placing a reorder. I'll be restocked probably within a few weeks or maybe a month. In the meantime, you can help me out if you want to support me by subscribing to my YouTube channel. I'm under Gary Hodges. You'll know it's me because my icon is a little dinosaur eating an alien. Or what's brand new, you can go to Redbubble and you can search for D vs. M, DVSM, and find some art that I'm starting to upload there. You can get yourself whatever, a phone case or a canvas shopping bag or a shower curtain or a print or whatever other crazy thing you can get on Redbubble. So I'll be continuing to add art there. Right now, I think I've got like 8 different things up, but there's more to come. So
nice. And then Squatchy, of course, in the chat
is asking if I should be.
Yes, shouldn't you be working? And
always working, Squatch. Always.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it right now.
I love it. And then, by the way, Squatchy, who also has shown Gary and I some sneak peeks of a potential appearance we might make in his comic, and it does not disappoint. It does not. Awesome.
It does not. We are sorry that we pressured him for an appearance.
Exactly. Pressure Squatch for an appearance. Regret it later.
That's right. That's right. Have second thoughts. Question everything.
So good. It is so good. All right, and finally, we have indie animator extraordinaire Jim Lujan, who is easily the funniest person you will ever hear in an interview. I was joking before we started that's how I would tee it off. But how are you doing,
ladies and gentlemen of the internet? Prepare to laugh, just nonstop. Just
how are ya? That's it. That's all I got.
That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Lujan.
Sorry, I'm out. By the way, I want to say thank you. I have 2 brand new patrons in the last 48 hours.
Yes.
So that's awesome. And if anyone goes and signs up on my Patreon, they can see preview clips of my new film, Pleasure Beast, that I'm working on. That should be out in by the end of the month or the beginning of next month-ish. And maybe I'll even show you the entire Cory animated video. Maybe I'll just, if you sign up for my Patreon, maybe I'll just do that. I don't know. See how I feel or how broke I am.
Yeah.
You know.
So, you could release the D vs. M 1979 script.
I'm actually that's why they signed up, because I did that. Actually, I did see Cory's video and it's completely amazing, and I don't know how he does what he does, or I can't even fathom it. It's just, when I was watching it, I was just like, there's so much work. I know you did cheats, but it looks really great too.
You guys talk it up so much that when people see it, they're going to be like, oh, I was kind of expecting, something else.
I'm being passive aggressive because they talk me up so much.
As the funniest man on the internet.
That means a lot, Jim, coming from
the funniest man on the internet is going to show you the greatest animated video ever made. Sign up for my Patreon.
So today's topic is setting the bar so high that no one will ever be satisfied.
That's right.
That's what we're talking about today.
I love it. All right, so you guys heard it here, the most stunning music video ever created. Cory Kerr.
I call it the game changer. That's what I call it.
Yeah, exactly.
So. I expect it to win at least one award in the Eastern Bloc somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's where I expect it to be, somewhere in like the Czech Republic or something.
I remember when I was playing it on my laptop, I looked out of the window and there was a hummingbird frozen in midair. Just completely frozen, and it was just incredible. Really.
That's because birds aren't real and they work for me.
I don't think animated shorts can get the Nobel, but they're gonna rewrite those rules. Once they see this, they're gonna realize they need to make some changes, I think.
Yeah.
I love it, and we are honored to be in the presence of Cory Kerr.
And in no way is that video full of the same looping animation with a different camera angle 15 times. So
Cory hates this so much. Right
so much.
I love it. All right, so Jim, where is your Patreon so everybody can find it and become a Patreoni?
It's at CoryKerr.com.
CoryKerr.com, and then that'll redirect you to JimLujan.com. I don't know, if you go to Patreon, just type in Jim Lujan.
Yeah.
Hey, I was told there were going to be name tags on our boxes here.
I was wondering, why don't we have name tags?
What kind of discount show is this?
What happened to the name tags exactly?
There's too many people, or how?
No, there's just
there
button.
we
go.
Am I the only one who knows that he used the button?
Yes. Yes, Cory. That's actually the trick that makes Cory's animation so good. He's working with Jim on an animation. He's like, Jim, you didn't know, just press this button, and it just makes everything.
Yeah.
I think it's great that we have this awesome roundtable of guests, and I want to kind of tee off the topic a little bit just to mention like what brought it up. So, I had a cool experience earlier in the week with like an older project that I had finished a long time ago and had long kind of forgotten about. And some good news came from that, like really incredible news. And I was kind of sharing it with like the people in this, like on the stream, are like some of my crew of people that I would let know when good things happen, because it's fun to share with like creators you admire and respect, and peers and stuff. And I was sharing that with a couple of the people on the chats in the stream right now, and a conversation got rolling mainly with Jim initially, where we were just talking about how weird it is that like when you're a creative, when you're being active in making stuff, if you stay at it and you kind of just confidently sort of go forward, you continue to be hungry and like pitch stuff out, stuff happens. Like, and like, it's this weird thing that's like hard to explain. I've definitely experienced it in my own career a lot, where the moment I kind of forget about stuff, and of course, like still take opportunities and promote and stuff like that. But the moment I kind of forget to sort of think about previous stuff I've made, like stuff starts happening. But if I'm like desperately trying to get that thing, it's like those opportunities close very quickly. And it's this weird balance of like hunger versus opportunity. And Jim kind of brought up, hunger versus desperation. And Jim kind of brought this up too, where it's like, you can't be desperate, right? Because people can sense that. It's almost like dating or something. People can sense that you're just like extremely desperate to get anything you can. And there's something about that I think, like, whether it's evolutionary or whatever, it just kind of like detracts people from being interested. in like supporting your work and being on board, because in general, like most of us, like whether we like it or not, we're drawn to kind of confidence, like and not like overt confidence, but like confidence in work or people who are making stuff and just kind of having fun with it, because they that sort of attitude can be kind of magnetic. So
Yeah.
so there's this weird thing that I think a lot of artists are inevitably going to have a struggle between hunger and desperation, because in order to make things happen in the industry, you have to be hungry. Like if you forget to be hungry, like opportunities close as well, because it's like you're not even submitting stuff at that point. That's when you're like making a car in the garage that's just for you, right? You're not bringing it to car shows or doing anything with it. It's just like your little car project, right? So with art, like to get it out there, you have to kind of be shipping it out and like sending it and hustling and constantly talking about your work and self-promoting. And there's just this like really fine line between doing that and then just desperately begging people to look at you, which has a counterintuitive effect. So it's like this weird balancing act. And I think it would be a great topic, because I don't know if we've really talked about that on Artcasters before, sort of the fine line between hunger and desperation. And so I'm not sure where to exactly start with it, but I just think it's a great topic. So maybe we could start with just how it, like, maybe we could just describe like how hunger might have helped you in your own career initially. Like just the hunger to kind of get your work out there, or like hunger, how has that created opportunities for you in your careers or whatever. So maybe we could start with that. And then maybe we could move to desperation, I guess, like after. So what do you think? Any of you guys, like, does that ring a bell? Any kind of starting points for that?
I like the fine line is absolutely true, because if you don't put your stuff out there, you're right, nobody's going to see it. But at the same time, I also think when you do get a bit of attention or a little bit of success, it's like if you start thinking, oh, I want to do that again. That felt good. I want to do that again. And that can kind of create out of success, can create a desperation to keep it going. And I don't know, there's really no magic pill to fix that. I think the only thing that really can avoid that scenario is when you're kind of in the zone, which is a whole nother topic. But being when you're just so into a project that you're just in the zone, you don't think about the other stuff. You just have a set path, and you know what that path is, and you're just tunnel vision to make something good. I think it's when you kind of stop and you look at the reality is when desperation can kind of at any time sink in, because I think even the people that have massive success get that desperation when they think, oh, it could go away.
Yeah.
So it's just a built-in thing we have,
No, that I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think it innately is going to be kind of a struggle, especially for creatives, because it's like that first that first time you actually get kind of recognized for your work, like no matter how small the scale, it is like this dopamine hit, right? Like it's almost like a first high. And so it's really hard to not kind of start chasing that high all the time. Or to like not get sort of dissuaded or dispassionate about future projects, because like you don't get that immediately, right? Because like once you've kind of felt like tasted like a little bit of like people enjoying your work, it's almost like if every post you made on social media of art was just liked 1 billion times, and then you post something and it's like once. Like no matter how big a person is, like that sort of thing will get to you if you let it. And I love that you brought up the idea of kind of remaining busy with like kind of staying in that flow state, because I definitely have experienced that myself too, where it's like a lot of great things have happened when I'm working on the next project. And also having a next project lined up helps with a lot of the stress too of things aligning, because like that's another thing I don't think a lot of people consider. It's like, while you might like dream of like something happening, like the moment those things are actually happening can also be like highly stressful and chaotic. And in those moments, it's really key not to be putting out a lot of desperation. But when it's like, when you're in like a meeting where it's like a hair trigger, distance between a dream of yours actually happening and not, like you're sitting with the exec who's like gonna make that call, whether that can happen or not. It is really hard to kind of retain a lack of desperation and just a hunger. But if you're in that meeting and you've got like a thing going, like you're working on a book or the next animation, it's like you almost can't occupy yourself too much with that stress and tension, because you're just you're busy doing something else. So anyhow, yeah, that's a really good point.
Does it have something to do with self-identity? Because I'm wondering, I'm trying to think of what the actual difference is, because there's a lot of like outside things, that like you can kind of sense it. It's like one of those things, like trying to describe the difference between a myth and a fairy tale. Like a lot of people know it when they see it, but no one can give like a real definition. So here's what I was thinking as you guys were talking. I'm sitting in the meeting with the exec that can make or break this situation. If I'm hungry, I will want that to happen, but I won't need it to happen for my identity, right? I will still be the same person and view myself in the same way, whether or not some external force makes a decision one way or another. If I'm desperate, then I am needing that to happen to be able to rationalize or justify my worldview of what's going on. Because I wonder about like relationships and things like that. Like, there are people that want to be in relationships, but they're cool whether they are or not, but they want it, right? And then there are people that are desperate, and the people that are desperate, I feel like they need that to be able to be okay. And the other people, they just enjoy being in relationships.
Yeah,
I think I'm sorry.
No. I was actually going to transition to you, because when we were talking about the same topic, the parallel with relationships totally came up. So I was that field it to you.
Yeah, and I think just talking about desperation, I think I'm something of a mind like how Cory is about this. I think I'm diagnosing it a little bit differently. But I think on desperation, I think why desperation doesn't work either when you're trying to sell things or you're trying to date or whatever you're trying to do in life is it's an icky feeling. And when you're interacting with someone, anyone who's ever worked customer service, there's kind of like a mirroring that happens when you're with somebody else, so if they're angry, you start to get angry. If you're sad, like you can pull people in your direction. I think if you present desperation to someone, this is like the most practical reason why you shouldn't be doing that. If you're trying to hustle, they'll get a feel of that in the pit of their stomach, and their instinctive reaction is going to be ew. And they that's what makes that break. I think they're like, you're making me feel bad, and I don't want to feel bad.
As a biological imperative, I think it's the same thing as like a rotten smell.
Yeah, you just know that this is not a.
This might look okay, but something smells just a little weird about this, and I don't know what it is, but there's like red flags because
it's just not right. It's just not right, and I feel like I'm being pulled into your weird dark whirlpool that I don't want any part of. But
speaking of rotten smells, this leads me right to my Comic-Con story.
Oh no.
It's like when you walk down the aisle of a Comic-Con, and you can just tell which artists are desperate and which ones are just like, hey, I'm here, whatever, you can buy my stuff or not.
Right.
Yeah. And I hate that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it makes you uncomfortable walking by those tables. Like you feel bad. You feel like you're witnessing a guy and his girlfriend having a fight. You know, like, I mean, it's just like, I don't feel like I should be here. I feel like you're having a weird moment. And like, I don't, you know, like I'm going to cover my eyes and keep walking, you know, like it's just strange. But I think the way I'm kind of seeing this, like when this topic was pitched to me by Josh, I think I'm one of maybe the only person on the stream or one of the few people who thinks that even though the way we talk about hungry versus desperate, especially like when we're hustling, when we're trying to get our work out there, when we're whatever we're trying to do, we kind of use those interchangeably. They can kind of be synonymous or like a fine line between them. I personally see them as worlds apart, like just completely like it has the illusion of being similar, but it's not. And because to me, it boils down to completely different motivations.
Yeah.
I think if you're hungry, you're closer to what Jim was saying, like kind of in a flow state. You're doing your thing. You're feeling confident. You're trying to achieve something. You have a goal in mind. You're acting naturally. You're acting, you know, like that's a totally different place than when you're desperate, where to me it's very fear motivated. Like you're trying to get out of a situation, or you're trying to claw your way into something, or you're trying to, you know, it's a completely different mentality. Yeah. And I think that's where what was attractive about this topic to me is I think it all comes down to motivation. And it's something that I think I want to start talking about more on my channel, because I feel like creatives maybe don't talk about motivation enough. Why are you in this? What are you after? Like, what's the payoff? What are you looking for? And I think it's super important to get a sense for that, because it's going to color and maybe even taint all the work you're doing, and even how you experience any kind of goals once you get there. You know, like you could get there and realize like, oh, this didn't satisfy me the way I wanted. This wasn't what I hoped it would be, you know, because your mentality was wrong. I think it's all about it's where you're coming from. What's your headspace at? That's the big difference to me between hungry and desperate.
I disagree.
That was Scott. Scott said that.
I just knew. I could hear. I could just feel like, you know, him just like, oh, that's
boiling.
Actually, I do agree. I think it is a lot of it is a mindset. Yeah. I just put out a video. It's like, I forgot what it was titled. Like the three things beginning artists are doing wrong, and one of those things was trying to build a portfolio of quote unquote client work, because it's almost like in the beginning you're looking for clients to whatever, build a portfolio or whatever to show that, oh, I work for an actual company, when in fact you don't need to work for an actual company. You're better off, instead of taking these low or no paying jobs just because you think you need to prove that. And there is a caveat to that, and that is working with clients is going, that relationship is going to help you in the future with, you know, how to meet deadlines and all that stuff. But that aside, you don't need to actually work. I mean, do the stuff you want to do, create a client, or just do a mock-up of like a fake project for a company that you would want to work with. And I've seen cases where people do that, and then it actually catches the eye of that particular client, and they end up working for them anyway. But part of that is that scarcity. Oh, I need to get actual work. And in the beginning, you know everyone, I probably can speak for all of us. In the beginning, we're there like you kind of take anything, when in fact you'd probably be better off working at a McDonald's, you know, just to bring in some money and not taking these low or no paying jobs, and on the side doing the kind of stuff you want and building that portfolio. Because I remember taking those jobs, and just, was it yesterday? I think yesterday I got a call from a friend who was wanting, I guess there was an opening at McFarland, wanting, you know, an artist for something. And I'm like, yeah, I appreciate that, but I don't really want to work for somebody, where in the past I would have jumped at the chance to do that. And, and there were situations in the past where I was going to do some stuff McFarlane, it fell through and I was kind of bummed out or whatever. But now it's just like, no, I mean, because that's not my goal. And it's when you put yourself, if you have the right mindset, then no, my goal is that I want to be free of client work unless there's something in particular that I really want to do for whatever reason. But it's so nice and liberating to be able to turn that stuff away. And it's not because, who know, I don't know what that position paid or whatever. And, now that I'm in a spot where I'm trying to build back up my company and it's not exactly where I need it to be yet. It's still, so it's not like a money thing. It's not like I'm, it's maybe I could have used a position like that, or other things that have come across my desk that I've turned away because I just know that that's not where I want to be in the future. So you whether you make little sacrifices in the beginning, but it's so nice to be able to just say, no, that doesn't line up with my vision. And I have a vision, and it may take me a little while to get there, and I may have to struggle a little bit to get there, but there is that vision. So, and I think it is just, it's an abundance versus scarcity mindset. And I think that definitely applies to the topic tonight.
So
Well,
Scott,
that's me. That's a significant difference. Like desperation isn't a vision. Hungry is a vision. Like hungry implies like you've got your eyes on something. But,
Yeah.
Which is part of why I kind of, it's campy and silly, but like the thumbnail I did for this with the saber-toothed tiger and the caveman. The saber-toothed tiger is hungry. The caveman is desperate. Which would you rather be? I mean, like the caveman, he doesn't have like a big goal. He doesn't have success on his mind. He's just trying to like get to day 2, But the tiger is hungry. The tiger has something he's going after. The tiger has goals. But.
So, and the thing is, and I think this might be like an evolutionary thing, or I don't know what it is, but everyone's had a moment, like whether it's shopping for a car or like checking out like a place to rent or a house or whatever. But it's like at some point we've all had a moment where you're talking with a desperate salesperson and you're edging back, like you're physically withdrawing from it because it exudes this like a toxicity to it. Yeah. And I do think it's slightly evolutionary because I think we have this impulse to like and this may not be the best thing about human nature, but it doesn't change human nature. It's like I think if we see someone drowning, there's a fear that like if we go in to help the person drowning, like they're going to drag you down with them. And I will say I've experienced that in my life. Like I've definitely known people who got in desperate straits in their lives, and a lot of them have turned it around since. But had gotten to such a desperate state where they were dragging people down with them, and so I love that. But like it, to me, it is. I definitely agree with the idea of it being like a mindset thing because if my head is right, like when I'm making comics, I'm trying to make the best work I can make. And if I'm effective at that, like if I am making the best work I can make, if I'm at a convention, I don't feel desperate because I have the best work I've made, right? Like it's not like a big deal. And the thing is, if somebody else doesn't like it, I've definitely gone through the process of making something that I feel good about. Like I feel good about it. I feel good about selling it. And that's the best sales place to be, right? Because like the best kind of sales are soft sells where the product can sell itself, right? Because it's a good product, right? The worst kind of sales, the kind that just reek of desperation, are the guy with like a gimmicky item that doesn't work and they're just trying to shove it down your throat. Like both have the same objective to sell their work, to get the word out, to get people to get their stuff. But there's a difference in like intention behind it. Like one, maybe we can get into this too, but maybe that has to do with why people are repelled by it. Like one is the guy who's trying to sell you a car that's not a good car. Like, it's not a good car. Like, they put like sugar in the engine and stuff to like make it look like it had less mileage. And we've all met that sales guy where you're like, I can't even trust this guy. Like, this guy will sell anything. Like, right? It's like they're just desperate, right? Yeah. Whereas if you meet a confident salesperson where you're like, I'm going to get a quote somewhere else, and they're just like, yeah, you should, like that instills confidence. Cory's talked about that when quoting, illustration or animation work, where like somebody will be like, well, that doesn't really fit my budget, and he's like, there's a lot of artists out there. You should like, Google them and maybe look for a different artist. Maybe I'm not the artist for you. Like,
yeah, I was going to say, I think the best kind of sale is one where both people walk, the salesman and the person doing, purchasing, walk away happy with what happened. Because if you walk away, from buying something and you're not happy, I mean, so you want to create a win-win. So
yes.
Yeah, I mean, and that should be the way you approach anything. Your work, you should have enough confidence as artists, cars are, I guess, a good analogy, but you're not actually creating the car. You have the ability to create the best artwork you can, and you should be confident about that. I mean, this is at whatever skill level you are, if it's the best you can do at that point, if you're not, if you're putting your all into it, and or you've reached a point where you're good enough, you have enough experience behind you that you can quickly create something. It may take somebody else, maybe somebody newer, a lot longer, but you have that experience, and it's still because of that experience you feel confident enough that you're giving somebody value for that, then yeah, I mean, you should be confident in your work.
I would much rather sell something. Well, actually, I'd much rather not sell something that I felt good about, that I enjoyed making, than sell something that I didn't care about and I didn't feel was my best work, and I kind of was embarrassed to show. And I can say that with confidence because I've done both. Like, I've sold things and made money off things that's like, I don't feel good about this at all.
Well, I was wondering if maybe we could just go back a little bit and talk about drowning people again for a little bit. If not, no, I actually had a real question. This is a real world example. Scott, you can help me with this.
Okay.
I know that you had for a while, had an aversion to getting on Instagram. And yeah. I'm wondering did you ever pull that trigger? And if you did you feel, if it's not in your heart, did you feel it was like, oh, it's feeling desperate? You know what I mean? Like, if you don't want to do something, but maybe business wise, it might be,
Yeah, kind of the opposite, kind of sort of. So my thing wasn't, I mean, I'm on Instagram, and I was on Instagram, and there have been times where I posted daily on Instagram and everything. And it got to the point where I wasn't really seeing a return on investment from what I was doing there. So, and I've talked about maybe trying a different approach, and I haven't really got to that yet. My goal, and I started strong creating some content, and I kind of shifted, but I got to get back to it, and that's creating some video content that I could, start trying out TikTok, and then using that same content on whatever it is, Instagram. What's their short video thing that's like what they're going to try to Reels that they're going to try to take over TikTok like they did Snapchat. Successfully, I guess they did. So that, and also YouTube has something too, Shorts or something. I forgot what it was, but
YouTube has Shorts. Twitter has Reets.
Reets.
A Reet
instead of tweets. Okay, yeah, whatever. Everyone's going to the short video content. So I mean, I've got tons of stuff. Like my idea is to take my Making Comics 101 and chop it up into bite-sized things and reformat it so it's horizontal, and see what happens with that. But so yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's also, where do I focus my time on? All this stuff takes time, and I just got to the point where I just wasn't seeing the return. Like, I'm not seeing a lot of people, and not that everything has to lead to a purchase or something like that, but Instagram, is very hard to get people. I mean, the goal of every social media thing is to keep people on the platform and not necessarily send them off. But I find, for whatever reason, I find with YouTube, I'm able to get people because it's easy to link out of YouTube, even though, they'd rather keep people on, so I get people actually going to my store from YouTube and stuff like that. Whereas Instagram, it's really difficult. It seems difficult to do that. So, so I don't know. Does that answer your question, Jim?
Yeah, and I was just wondering if there's any platforms or anything that you're on or things that you do for business-wise, because you see results that you kind of don't, that you're not, maybe that you're doing it for just the business reason. Because I'm, to my detriment, the opposite. There's a lot of business things I should be doing that I'm not because I'm super lazy when it comes to that. I don't have the energy to do that.
I have 3, Jim.
What's
3
that?
that are fully business purposes. I hate every second and every moment of doing it.
Which ones?
Tinder,
invoicing, contracts, and answering emails.
Yeah.
Those are. There is no joy. There is no creativity. There is no part of that at all that is ever enjoyable. That I have never sat down and done any of those things and thought, wow, what a useful waste of my time.
Well, most people would say that, but what about creatively? Is there anything that you're putting out there creatively that you're doing strategically? And if so, is that a form of desperation, or is it part of the hunger game?
Well,
I mean, I don't do what I don't want to do most of the time. I guess probably any client work that I ever take.
Yeah, that's an honest answer. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of these social media platforms, like whether it's Instagram or TikTok or whatever, like when I say you really can't click out of it to go, like if you want to go to somebody's store, but that's not the only thing you want to think about as an artist, because being top of mind, being a brand, even if they're, it's just like the advertise, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, whoever. Just most people aren't going to sit there and watch a Coca-Cola commercial and like, I got to go run out and get a Coke right then. But the more you see it, the more it's in your brain. And so when you are in that position, so it's not always, and you can do that with Instagram or whatever, if people constantly see you and they get familiar with you. So, but it is a lot of work. And, I'll
tell you my personal example where the closest thing to desperation. It's not Instagram. I mean, I don't care how many followers I have on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. That's all for fun, and it is to get the word out there, but it's not something I dwell on. But my YouTube channel, I've had it since the beginning of YouTube, 75 years ago.
Yeah.
And I have a ridiculously low number of subscribers to what I should have,
I feel you.
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of people, but I mean, and then you look. I mean, there's so many people that. I mean, I guess you can go both ways. There's people that have been on it, they're in my shoes, that have a lot less, and there's people that have a ridiculous amount, And ultimately, I know it doesn't make that much of a difference, but it's more of an ego thing. It's more like, wow, I feel like I should have more.
Yeah.
So when I think about that opens a door to desperation. So I'm probably going to storm the YouTube building and take hostages. I'm thinking, I don't know. Yeah, might do that.
That seems like the most reasonable course.
Probably shouldn't say that on YouTube.
On YouTube?
Yeah.
It's probably not a good thing.
And this is looping right back to the conversation about drowning people again.
Yes.
Right.
Speaking of drowning.
The whole hunger and desperation thing. I think about YouTube a lot in that instance, because I know deep down that I'm not doing the things that I need to do to grow on YouTube. Like I've studied it. I've been to conferences. I've talked to people who help write the algorithm. Like I've talked to people who are engineers that analyze the different things, and I'm aware of what it takes. I'm not willing to do it.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? So
what are some of the things?
What does it take? Laundry try-on hauls?
So for example, if you want to do it, then you do a deep dive into like keyword research and SEO search terms. And so you would go through and open up a spreadsheet and spend about 25 to 30 hours analyzing what people are searching on Google, what people are searching on YouTube, cross-referencing that with like vidIQ or other things. And then you would go through and you'd do pivot tables in your thing to like, sort different whatevers. And like, I can do all of that. And as an experiment, I did it for like a couple hours just to see what it would be like. And I decided that I don't care enough about YouTube to spend the time that I would need to do, because you would need to do that every 3 to 5 months.
Now you see, I was hoping your answer was going to be boobs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to guess. I was
well, that's Twitch.
Twitch.
What works on Twitch is get a hot tub and play video games in a bikini.
Be attractive.
Let's be fair, guys. Boobs works everywhere.
It does. It is.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the untold algorithm hack that dates back to before we could even write or had a printing press. Or
have an algorithm.
I think that what you just mentioned, though, Cory, is kind of like highlighting the division between desperation and hunger. Because if I'm like sincerely hungry, just thinking about the process of what I do, right? Like if I'm really hungry and I get access to food, what do? I eat. Like that's it. Like I'm hungry, I need food, I'm gonna eat, right? It's just I'm gonna be less and less picky about what it is that I consume, like the more hungry I am, right? If I'm desperate, you're gonna
be less and less picky the more hungry or the more desperate you are.
The more hungry, but what's interesting to me is like when you talk about desperation, it's an interesting thing because I think what you just described about the algorithms and what you'd have to do to have success in it, right? And just kind of doing the math and being like, you know what? I kind of can't like get desperate about it because I haven't done the like recipe or whatever that ends up in that result that I want, right? Like if I really want that result, I'll do that recipe that I described, right?
Yeah, I disagree. And I think if I was hungry enough for that specific thing, I would do that.
That's what I'm saying.
No. But listen, but if I was desperate, then I would like go buy empty followers and like, I do all the things that would actually in the end hurt me.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. So
okay,
my point is,
I misunderstood.
Yeah. My point is like, if you're hungry, you're going to do all those steps you just described.
Right.
Because you're a guy who's hungry in other areas, you're able to acknowledge that like, hey, I haven't done these steps. So I'm not really going to go down that path. Like if I wanted to go down that path, I'd make those steps. But if you were desperate, you'd be like, screw the steps, screw the thing. Like I'm just going to do the quick way, like, or whatever the shortcut is to kind of get those things.
See,
followers and all of that,
I think again, I'm seeing it totally different. I think if you were desperate, you would be just flailing, trying any stupid thing, tip, idea, strategy you've read because you're just kind of like you're splashing in the water.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, how about this? Being that this is a comic book related show in a way.
Yes.
Hungry and desperate are actually the same thing. It's the same person. It's just that hungry is Bruce Banner and desperate is the Hulk.
I think
it's what it becomes when it gets out of hand.
Right. Like irrational and like just flailing and trying things where like hungry is more like
Hungry has an objective.
I think
it's calculated. Hungry is calculated.
What I was going to say is like, I think if you're hungry, you might question the whole idea that if you follow this path through the forest, there'll be a magic castle with gold in it. Like if you do this and this and this with the algorithm and the YouTube, then therefore equals success.
Yeah. And
like, I think if you're desperate, you'll like, sure, I'll try that.
Yeah. But desperate. Like, not only do you throw out the playbook, you throw out your original playbook, but you're scrambling for any playbook.
Anything that anybody comes along and says like, "Here, I can help you. You got to do this and this," and like, "Okay, I'll try it." Where if you're
I disagree with what I just said.
I don't know.
I have another thing that will help differentiate the two. There's this old video called The Pump, which is made in the 70s it's a student film. Okay.
Is this a video that you can play at your workplace, Cory?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
a
about
70s
it's about
video
this-
called The Pump.
I knew we were going to get around to Sandusky.
So it's about geez.
I
It's
never
about
would
a
have
guy.
predicted that Josh would have brought up Sandusky. Like that would not have been on my
Well, he's desperate. Right?
bingo card. He's desperate.
Yeah.
He's desperate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. So there is a guy. He's in the desert. It's a student film, so it's weird, right? It's also the 70s, so it's like experimental. But there's a guy in the desert. He's dying of thirst. Okay, and then he comes up on this old like well pump. You know, one of those little hand things. You know.
I'm sorry,
And,
Cory. I'm the most immature person in the world. Just the title, and
This-
now we're talking about somebody thirsty.
So
in
he was
the
like
desert.
this. He's
And
working
he's
the
pumping.
pump. He's working it. He's thirsty.
Have you guys ever been on a farm and seen one of those? They're really
Yeah.
annoying.
What is the name of that? It's just a water. There's a name for that
A
thing.
spigot?
What
I think it's
happens on the farm
I think
stays on the
I
farm.
think it's just called a water pump. Anyway,
But pump it up, Cory.
No,
Pump it
that's
up.
what it's
all
called.
right. So
All right.
this is taking way too long because it's not even worth the payoff. But anyway,
Everyone prepare for the most perfect analogy.
Ladies and gentlemen,
That-
the finest animator of our generation speaks.
This
so anyway,
will
so this
encapsulate
guy,
there'll
he's
be
dying of
nothing left to
thirst
say
in the
after.
desert.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, he's dying of thirst in the desert. He comes up on a pump and he tries to get a drink out of it, and it doesn't work. And then there's this glass bottle with a note tied around it that's sitting there. And so he reads the note, and it's this old prospector that says, "This pump works great, but you have to prime it. Don't drink this bottle. Use it to prime the pump. You prime the pump, and it'll give you all the water that you want." And instead of priming the pump, he drinks the bottle, right? And then he dies of thirst. You
Does
guys are hilarious.
the doctor say, because I'm trying to give you a physical?
So my point is,
So that guy is desperate.
I think one of the differences between hungry and desperate is short-term thinking and long-term thinking.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And so
Yes.
if I am desperate, I'll take anything that is presented right now, no matter what. If I'm hungry, I'm willing to say, you know, does this align with what I want? And is this like what Scott was saying? You know, like working for McFarlane Toys would be rad. That would be awesome, right? But a desperate person would be like, this is an opportunity. I'm taking it no matter what. I'm not going to think about it. Blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
I want this. I don't know if it's the right move for me. I don't know if I like it.
I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to do
Right.
it. Right. I'm just
Yeah.
going to drink the bottle.
Right.
Okay. The hungry person is like, I want something that aligns with my goals and gives me what I want long term.
Right.
And so, you know, you kind of put that off a little bit. It's the same thing that they used to do with kids. I don't think they're allowed to do this anymore because human testing has become more restricted. You put marshmallows in front of a kid and you say, if you wait 10 minutes and don't eat this marshmallow, I'll give you as many marshmallows as you want. And almost no kid under 6 can do it.
I
They're
do
all,
that. I still do that in my van all the time.
yeah, right. Just sit here in this van. Don't look out the window. Don't wave anyone. No. So that's what I'm saying is I think one of the major differences between hungry and desperate is, you know, the time that it takes you to do that thing. Somebody gives you fish. Are you going to eat the fish? Or are you going to use it as bait to catch all the fish that you want?
Catch more fish. How deliberate are you being?
Yeah.
How thoughtful? Yeah. How conscious are you being?
You
know?
guys made that way harder than was worth it.
No,
Everyone was
I
laughing.
think we actually
Everyone
helped.
left.
I
Everybody
think
was
we-
like, I just wanted to hear Cory's story, and he wasn't.
I love it though, because I think you touched on like a really important part, which we haven't really brought up about the desperation too, because it leaves you open to being prey. Like, and this ties into Gary's like illustration, and I think it's really important. It's like the kinds of people who are artists who are giving into like the hey, we'll give you exposure, kid kind of emails.
Yeah.
That's a desperate, hungry person. And everything everybody's brought up here is correct in the sense that it is this fine line, because like when you're a young artist, you are hungry to get work, and that hunger can very quickly become desperation, right? Because you're like, especially if you have like student loans, right? You have a lot of things, a lot of pressures, maybe a lot of self expectations, which ties into what Scott was talking about, where it's like a mindset thing where you're like, you're almost putting expectations on yourself that are creating a scarcity mindset rather than an abundance mindset. And then that makes you make bad decisions. But it's like when you're desperate, people can sell, like, that's the thing that's the most important thing about like avoiding desperation is people can sell you anything when you're desperate. Like when you're desperate, I could give you poison and say it's water, right? Like there's a difference between that and being hungry. And I agree with Cory. I think it has a lot to do with discernment, right? Discernment would be like you're hungry for a deal. You get an offer that sounds like a good deal. You do the research on that. Like, is that the deal you want? You do the thinking about it. Does this align with my goals, right? Like, you have the presence of mind to kind of like actually assess and make a more rational decision.
And you follow up too. When you're hungry, you follow up. I mean, desperation, same thing. You still follow up, but you're just following up on just every direction.
Yes.
But yeah, to be hungry is also, I think there's an element of smartness to it, I think too. I think the whole goal, the whole roadmap thing is very important. But I mean, I think every artist, desperation is lurking just under the surface for all of us. I think we're just one rejection away from being desperate, all of us, which causes this could turn into therapy, I'm sure, but rejection, everyone's afraid of rejection at some level. And you just when you put yourself into a vulnerable situation, and just the thought of what the rejection would mean to everything, to ego, to your goals, to your, that can point someone into a desperate situation. So I'll use myself as an example. I think I create what I create and the way I create because that's a big factor too, because I know what I do is very niche. And so I think I've told myself a long time ago, the reward needs to be the work for the most part. And then good things will happen on top of that. And it has to a certain extent. But I think what kind of is always floating up there right above the surface is that the fear of rejection. Because I know, it's there. It's if I pursue certain avenues that aren't my strong point, I just common sense tells me, oh, that's not going to work. And I don't know how much of that psyching yourself out and how much is actually realistic, because all of us have gone through the, oh, Jimmy, that's so good. I know they probably called you all Jimmy when you were a kid, but
that's true. I think
we
it was
all
in
got
that exact accent too. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sandusky. But I just think, I don't know. That's my point. My point is, I think I really do believe that it's the same thing. It's hunger and desperation are the same thing. It's controlled. Yes. Desperation is hunger.
I think,
or vice versa. Like metastasized hunger is
desperation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I feel like we're on the same page. Like I've also, I feel like my comic is, I've never imagined 80 million people are going to be into this. I've always imagined it's very niche, but that was fine for me because just like you, I had the same conclusion of I need to be enjoying the work. And that kind of gets me back to motivation again. I've always felt, and if people, have watched my videos or caught me in other things, I dance around this a lot. I think it's really important to be kind of intrinsically motivated if you're a creative. And if you want to go down the rabbit hole, I advise anyone, I think it can be useful if you're creative, especially if you're sort of an angsty creative and you're trying to figure it out. Google extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation and kind of go down that rabbit hole. Extrinsic.
I can't spell that.
I will give you the Cliff's notes.
Okay.
Extrinsic is you're looking for motivation, like you're getting motivation externally. So like you're working on your personality to get the girl, or you're trying to, you know, dress up, you're buying a suit to get the job, or you're
got it. So you're
you
going
know,
out
like-
to a desert and saying you're a spigot and asking somebody to pump it, right?
Exactly. Yes. Something like that. Yeah. You're not stealing a thing because you don't want to talk to a cop about it. Like that's all like extrinsic
Yes.
motivators. Intrinsic is where you're doing it because you just enjoy. That's like what we're talking about when we say like I was in a flow state. Like you're just enjoying doing it.
Yeah.
And I think personally, not only there's lots of benefits to being in that headspace. Psychologically, like in research, they've shown that people who are more intrinsically motivated are more likely to excel at things because it's easy, like that it changes the way you approach things. But I think it also makes it so whatever the outcome, you feel good about it, and it makes you pretty well guarded against desperation.
Yeah.
It's like where would desperation come from? Again, like the analogy I use a lot of like if you're a guy in your basement building a model railroad set, why would you ever be desperate about it? Why would you ever be like, I can't find the right traffic light? You know, like I mean, it's like that's not a thing. Desperation enters in, I think, when you're getting extrinsic, when you're worrying about the audience, the publisher, the likes, the follow, you know, all that now you're turned outward, and that's where like all the weird fear and stuff can come in.
Yeah, and what's weird is it is really close to hunger though, right? Because like part of the hunger thing is thinking about audience and thinking about bigger publishers and bigger presence and stuff like that. So there is like, I think Jim is dead on in the sense that there is like this kind of crossover, right? Like and I will also say, just from my own experience, I've definitely been in both boats where I've been desperate in my motivations. I can think like the best example is like job hunting, right? Before I got a gig as an art director, I had like my son was like just born and all my freelance work dried up and I was like adjuncting, right? Which anybody who's adjuncted knows like teaching college part-time is not a lucrative gig.
I knew you were an adjunkie.
Yeah, I was an adjunct. But anyhow, like, so I was like, it was hard not to be desperate when I would go out and look for work or when I would send out queries because I literally have a mouth to feed, right? Like I have to make money.
Yeah.
And so being in a scenario like that, which by the way, I'm not alone in that. That's like the majority of people on this earth, right? We have to make money. We have to eat, right? We have to feed our families. And so there is inherent like hunger and desperation in our condition just as people, right? But it was so hard to find a gig. And the way I found a gig that ended up working was when I finally just kind of let go of desperation and was like, you know what? Like, and this is the thing about desperation versus hunger that I think is telling, at least for myself, is like hunger doesn't necessarily change your perception of yourself. Because you're hungry doesn't necessarily have to do with your own value. It's just a condition. Like you are hungry, period. Right? If you're desperate, that reflects very much on yourself, like your self-worth, right? And I think that that in the right mindset, you can be hungry and still maintain your self-respect, your identity, right? And like in like thinking about that scenario in my life, which was like years ago, but it's like that scenario when things actually worked out was when I finally got to a point where I was able to assess myself, my own value, like what I could bring to a workplace, what I could bring to a client, and kind of just accepted that for what it was rather than let desperation speak to me, right? And like desperation is going to be like, you're worthless, just get it all or whatever. hunger is more of an assessment where you're like, okay, if you're out in the woods and you're hungry, you're like, okay, well, what do I got? Like, I got a pair of keys. Could I use it as a knife to like hunt and get some food? Like, could I, you know what I mean? Like, you start thinking more systematically and assessing what you have to work with. And I guess that's what I'm getting at is like, for me, there have been multiple times in my life where just by kind of forgetting about the situation and thinking more realistically about what tools I have to work with to kind of get my hunger quelled, right? As opposed to desperately seeking without even knowing what I have. And I think there's a difference. I've had to interview people too for work. And I will tell you, in job interviews, it's totally the same. When you're interviewing someone who's desperate for a job, it's embarrassing to say because it's like, I hate saying it, but it's like really hard to want to hire that person because you think like there's a paranoia to it. You're like, is this person gonna like kill me? Like if I hire them, like there's a strangeness to total desperation, whereas hunger is really appealing because it's like you can relate to hunger. You can be like, I've been hungry like that. I've wanted an opportunity like that, right? So it is a fine line, and
I have a real world.
Hard to define.
I have a real world example for you where how you could just be going along and a situation can present itself and you become momentarily desperate. You don't even think about it. We were at a show because I only go to shows in Hollywood. We were at a show in Hollywood. It was actually through Ken Mora, our mutual friend.
I love it.
And
I'm going to be boothing at LA Comic-Con with Ken Mora.
He's a good guy. And at this show, after the host of the show was Mike Judge. And Mike Judge is one of my heroes, my inspirations, and has a very similar sense of humor to me. And I always thought, if I ever met him, XYZ, And so there he is. I got to meet him after the show. And in that, I knew he was on his way out and he was alone. No, I didn't try to kill him, but here's my chance. This is my chance to talk to Mike Judge. That opens a whole Pandora's box of desperation if you can't control it. There's so many things I want him to see. I want him to see this. I don't want him to see that. Luckily, I'm a huge name dropper, and I at the time was working with Bill Plimpton, and I know that Mike Judge loves Bill Plimpton, and so I had something to talk to him about. It's like, hey, Mike, big fan. I'm working with Bill Plimpton on a film right now, and he's like, oh, really? And then what did he say? I don't know. He asked me a question about Bill, and I'm like, yeah, and I'll tell him to contact you or whatever, Yeah. And then he gave me his email address. Mike Judge gave me his email address. So that opened up a whole nother potential desperation. Like, do I start sending him my cartoons and did into that? So long story short, I killed them. But no, I didn't act upon that desperation. I did follow up with him on a couple of things, but I never, I didn't burn that bridge by being Mr. Desperate. And I also didn't build a bridge by being aggressive with it too. So I just kind of status quo. But I recognized that right away. Like there was a window of desperation because I thought I will only have 30 seconds with this guy.
Yeah.
And there's so many things I wanted to tell him.
Right. And this could be a huge opportunity. And
this could be,
if I play the chess game just right, everything's gonna, change. It's gonna,
But likewise with Bill Plimpton, you didn't go heavy after Bill Plimpton either. You gave him some tapes and I think for my understanding that you had his contact information, but you're not bothering him and he called you up or
with Bill Plimpton, those cartoons where the guys the Bugs Bunny hitchhiking and he sticks his leg out and it's like a beautiful woman's leg. That's what I did with Bill Plimpton. Yeah. I was like, the leg would be the DVDs. I thought if he goes home and watches these, I think he'll probably game knows game.
You know,
No, but it worked. It worked.
This makes me think of something. Like there is a fine line here, I think, where it comes to, I think sometimes it's important to show people you're hungry.
Yes.
But the fine line is not letting it come off like desperate, you know?
Yes.
And like, that's something where I'm sort of like, I feel like that's sort of the weird narrow path you were navigating in both those situations, where it's like, I want to like signal. It's like, it's, you're going up to the pretty girl and you're like, I want her to know that I'm interested, but I don't want it to seem too interested.
Yeah.
But there's a way, if you play that too safe, like we know one end is desperation.
Yeah.
And that's like, we've already talked about, that grosses people out. And I also think, like, when you were talking about interviewing people who are desperate, there's a fragility to that.
Yes.
That makes me very uncomfortable. Like, it makes me think like this person is just a little too, it's like a little China cup. And I don't want to.
The best explanation I can have is it's almost like you feel like you're being held hostage. And that's, nobody likes that feeling. Like
you're now being careful.
Like for instance, if Jim had approached in that parking lot in like an uncomfortable way and was just like, dude, like, I love your work and blah, 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 and like not had any angle to it, that then puts him in an uncomfortable position where he's like, dude, I'm trying to get to my car. Now I'm held hostage. What do you want from me? Like, that's not a fun place for anyone to be. But if Jim's not hungry, he's never going to have that opportunity to have that connection where he hands like Bill Plimpton the DVD, right?
Might not even approach at all. Yeah,
and exactly. I can second that. Like, for like every opportunity I've gotten well, not every, but most opportunities I've gotten in my life as an artist came from me like overcoming a fear and pursuing an ambition. So there is a hunger and a chase to it, but rarely did it come from like, oh, that's the editor of Scholastic, I'm going to go to them and show them. Like, that's not the way.
I'm going to ambush him while he's having drinks, and I'll be
I was like, Mr. Judge, I want to tell you a story about a pump.
Mr. Judge, let me tell you about the desert, a pump, and how you can.
So I'm horrible when it comes to jumping on opportunities like that. Like when we see a celebrity or we see somebody that I want to talk to about, I could talk to about business.
Yeah.
In a situation where I'm not, I don't have a captive audience. Yes, by captive I mean literally. But
you guys don't understand. But before this started, Jim basically just informed us that we're all held hostage on this.
Yeah. So, but my wife Leanne's really brave when it comes to stuff like that. Like, she will go up to someone and if I see somebody that I really admire in public, I do not want to approach them. That's just how I am. However, if I'm in a situation to talk with them, I'm great about it. I don't get nervous and I can talk to them. But it's just like, I put myself in their shoes because it's like, Gary, you nailed it. You just said you put them in an awkward situation. Yeah, and then I don't know if it was Cory that somebody mentioned the fear. That's a big, I was going to say fear factor, but it is a big factor. Straight up fear, of fear of a lot of things. And I'm sure Scott, through the program that you attended, probably talked about a lot of that, and probably a lot of internal fear. But yeah, it's artists are very interesting people,
Yeah, and like the thing I like that that I feel like you keep touching on, Jim, too, is the fact that like when I'm talking about this balance, it's like, like the parallel that Gary and I were talking about too, like where it's like it's similar to dating in the sense of like, I do remember as a young man being like really lonely and kind of desperate for a date and bombing, like asking a girl on a date, like just completely ruining any opportunity of that happening. And part of it was just mostly desperation, where it's like, I just really, you come across as desperate. And again, like desperate doesn't really read as like this, like I'm gonna have fun going out with this person, like they're gonna take me out and we're gonna have a good time, like and maybe watch a movie and enjoy it, and like no, instead it's like this is a lot of pressure. That doesn't seem fun. Like I've been at both points, right? And at my best, I'm at the point that I was at with my wife, where like I was in a class with an art student that I liked, who was attractive, and I walked up to her and I was like, "You're rad. We've had some cool conversations. Do you want to go on a date?" And by date, I mean like an actual date. Would you be interested? Not like a friend thing, like a date. And she was like, "Yeah." And however, like if I had gone up there and been like, I know I'm not really that great, and like had all sorts of self-doubt presented in front of that, or had desperation where it's like, you have to go on this thing because if you don't, like it's all about kind of like the mindset going into it. And before going into that, I was kind of at a point in my life where I was like, look, this person's really cool. We could become friends. We could not. And I'd like to just see. And that's it. Like it was approached from a point of view of like exploration, as opposed to a point of view of like intention, like where it's like, actually maybe that's part of it too. Maybe part of it is like your own expectation of the situation. Like for you to approach somebody that could be a kingmaker or whatever, in industry in an effective way, you almost have to view it from a standpoint of like, you don't necessarily have the chess pieces to play, right? Like if you go into it thinking like, I'm going to make this chess move, you're going to make this move, and then it's going to lead me here, like as if you can set the whole thing in motion, that can be really dangerous, because if those pieces don't move exactly where you need them to be, like heading towards desperation. Whereas if you just go, I don't know, I really admire this person, they could be a cool person to know. And like Jim was saying, where it's like, hey, I work with this guy knows this guy who knows this guy, so I can kind of mention that. And that's an in for conversation to somebody I'd really enjoy talking to. That's a much better approach, because you're approaching the person like a human being, right? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and I think, we all have done this. Everybody everywhere falls victim to this. But I think there's a danger in assuming or imagining that you have more power over a situation than you actually do. And that also can lead to like weird, desperate and unhappy thoughts, like just the notion that like, if I manage to find myself on an elevator with Mike Judge or whoever, if I play it exactly right, my whole life will change. Like that's kind of irrational thinking, like, and that, like, I think there needs to be a little bit of like, Miyamoto Musashi thinking, where it's like, I'm not preoccupied with the outcome of this. This could go my way or it could not, and either way I'm going to be fine. So to try and relieve yourself not only of that pressure, but like this weird unnatural burden that like, if I play my cards exactly right, I'm going to be a millionaire this time 6 months from now. I mean, it's crazy.
That's why we're friends. It all comes to light now, Gary.
Is that it?
Wow. I don't know who's using who though. So
I don't. Well, probably me. I'm probably using you. Sorry.
Thanks. It makes me feel better, actually.
Yeah.
So, and I'm using Cory. So I don't know who Cory's using.
Maybe there's a whole circle here. Maybe Cory is using Josh, and Josh is using Scott, and like there's just we're all just.
So how did Cory get you to use him? Was it the old walk you out into the desert and talk about the water?
Just waited outside his car in the parking lot.
I think it is. I am sympathetic though to like young artists and even artists who've been in the game for a while, when opportunities close that were once open. We've all known people who like had their dream job, like they worked their whole life to like work at Disney or something, and then like get laid off. And that's a desperate situation. Like, it's not a fun situation to be in. And desperation is something you will butt heads with probably if you're in industry long enough, or just in life long enough, right? Like, there's desperate scenarios and situations. But I think the thing about another angle to this too that we might want to touch on before we kind of close it up is like also the counter to hunger and desperation is just completely being checked out. And that in itself is very like, it doesn't lead to a lot of opportunity either, right? So let's say you're the guy who's like, you're kind of seeing a potential scenario that could actually be a really good opportunity for your book or for your animation or for whatever it is that your project is, right? And you're like, there's this great opportunity, and you have fear hit, and you just kind of go, well, never mind. Like, it's, or just like you've had enough, like Jim was describing, like rejection is such a huge part of what we all do. I mean, rejection is a massive part of any art enterprise. Any practice in art is going to be filled and rife with like rejection letters, critics, like people who dislike what you're doing, people who you admire who may not have like the same viewpoint as you, and that can wear on people in industry long enough, right? Or even people who've like maybe tasted some of the successes they were hungry for, and they're like, nah, it's not that great, right? And they kind of lose that hunger. That's not a great scenario either. If you lose that hunger, you can kind of end up being the old burnout illustrator, and that's a line that's hard not to cross as well, where it's like you don't want to become the old burnt out person who's just like, well, whatever, that never works, like about everything. I don't know. So
that again is like what Jim was saying earlier, and I totally related to. I think that again becomes like a question of what are you after, what's motivating you.
Yeah.
If like all you're after is like a position or a title or a certain amount of something external, then it's real easy to become that guy, that crotch, the crotchety old dude who like has been phoning it in for 20 years. And, like, but if your motivation is like, you're getting joy out of doing the work, it's hard for me to picture how you end up there, how you end up again saying like, nah, well, obviously you don't love it anymore.
Yeah.
Here, I want to interject with, as far as getting to that point that you're talking about, how you get there and everything. So and Jim had alluded to the training and everything. And I don't know if I brought this up before, but one of the things we learn in the training is this, there's a number of different disciplines, but one of them is be, do, have. Have I talked about this before? Okay, so I'll just quickly run down it again because not everyone probably heard me before. But so a lot of people get these backwards. So a lot of people think, oh, if I do this job, then I'll have the money, then I'll be happy. But if you come from a place of happiness, if you come from a way of being where you're already happy, you already have it in your mind that you're happy. So when you switch it around, it's be, So if I'm being happy, if I'm being, and then do, and then that's the action, and then have, and then you'll have what you want. So I mean, it's already coming from a place like you already have what you want. Does that make sense? Hopefully I'm explaining it.
No, that makes
I think that
that ties in with the dating thing that I was comparing to, right? Where it's like, if you're confident in who you are as a person, you're a much better prospect for like dating other human beings, right? If you're looking for a person who's going to fill every, molecule in your body and be the answer to all of life's problems, like you're probably going to bounce from relationship to relationship or have trouble even getting one, because of the fact that like, other human beings aren't here to like fill your soul, like, right? And so what Scott is talking about is like fundamental, I think, to a lot of things, like, and I can attest to that from my own experience, where it's like the times in my life where I get in a desperation mode are very self-obsessed times. Like there are times where like what Jim was describing, I've definitely had times where I've sent out a comic that I worked for years on to like publishers, and I've dealt with like weeks long of rejections, right? And for like a millisecond, just let that get to me. And the moment that I'm doing that, if I sink into desperation, it's usually a moment where all I'm thinking about is me and the rejection, rather than like thinking on a broader viewpoint outside of myself. And I think that is so true, Scott, because if you start from like a centered point of view where you're like, look, like, it also ties to that. Like if you make the good work, like you work on like somewhat what Gary was saying too, where it's like you make the work that is fulfilling to you. You're the guy building the cool trains in your garage, and you're doing it just for the craft of doing it, the sheer joy of doing it. Then it's going to be really hard to kind of like end up in that sinkhole, because again, you're kind of doing this. What you're doing is good, right? What you're doing is the best you can do. Then like rejection doesn't hit as hard. And I think that's I don't know. Sorry, that was just a very astute point, Scott.
So astute. That was hella astute.
Hella
astute.
Evidently,
Hella
I left
astute.
everyone speechless. So
I really think we've talked a lot about the pitfalls of desperation and the origins of being hungry. And I'm just wondering if anyone listening to this at the end of this is going to be like, wow, being an artist sucks.
Yeah.
It just really sucks. It's all pain. No
Frank
gain.
has been saying that he's getting some great dating advice.
He's also
tips.
getting hungry, he said.
He's getting hungry. Yeah. He wants to eat, and he wants to go out and try a new approach with the ladies.
Yes.
Totally
Speaking of hungry and eating, I've watched Frank's Budcast. It was
that's right.
Very interesting.
That is on my it's on my like watch later list. I like because they have the bug feast, right?
Yeah, it was. I didn't know I thought it was kind of. I didn't realize Anna's experience, that her background with that. And seriously, I mean, I just thought it was like they're going to go, because you can buy like you can go into like Rocket Fizz or one of these places and buy the little package of bugs, and I just thought that's what it was. But no, it was seriously like finding raising bugs and things like that.
Oh, she was like making things.
Yeah, and preparing it, and
fantastic.
And her background with all that was really, really interesting. So I would everyone go to Chiraco Creative Cast and
was she raising the bugs to eat
them? And then Frank said, I guess Frank
on a little farm.
Frank just found some bugs, and it was bugs that because I've heard of crickets and how sustainable they are and things like that, but it was things like roaches and things like that. It was like, but after listening to Anna and explaining all this stuff, it was really interesting.
They have like a little bug slaughterhouse, or
I don't know, but
it was tiny water spigot with like a little glass of water next to it. And
yeah, because I mean I've seen her on the cast, and she's got all the plants and stuff behind her, but I didn't really know what her background was. But she also like paired it with these edible plants and different things like that. It was quite interesting. So
wow.
I mean, I consider myself pretty adventurous with food, but I haven't got to the bug part. But I don't know.
I don't even know if I could get to the watching the bug eating part. But now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I ate a cricket. I did eat a cricket once. Somebody bought a little package from Mexico or something, but it was mostly, it had so much chili on it that it just tasted like
I was gonna say I've eaten like a worm, but it's like that thing was doused in tequila, so it's like
Did you actually chew it up, or did you just shoot it down? Like
you just kind of shoot it down.
I've done that, but I didn't. Yeah, you feel it a little bit and then it's gone. And I had a chocolate covered scorpion at the state fair here once.
Wow.
It was totally first of all you taste is the chocolate. Like that overpowers everything. But it's like chewing up a peanut shell. It was just like tough and weird. Like it was just, I don't know. It was not that interesting. But
I don't know if I can trust your taste in food because you just dined on haggis and enjoyed
I did. You know what? I felt bad for my audience because I think they wanted to see me like going, oh my God. And,
No, I want to try. Is haggis, is it just old
Haggis
sheep?
Haggis is really good.
Or is it guts?
It's lamb lungs and oats and different spices and seasonings and everything.
It's all the organs that typically end up on the cutting room floor.
Right. Or
diced up, mixed with oatmeal, and then boiled inside of the stomach.
The stomach of a sheep, right? And I actually thought it was like good. Like I thought it was fine. Now I went to
England and had, what is that, sheep herder's pie or whatever that is?
Shepherd's pie.
Yeah,
that.
It was delicious.
England and Scotland are on the same island.
Shepherd's pie is great.
Their diet is drastically
great pub
different.
food.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and come up with something gross next. I think the next one I'll do the exclusive announcement here. Every once in a while, I used to do a Gary Eats. I'd find some weird thing to eat, and because people seem to like that. But for Halloween, I'm going to do a Hannibal Lecter meal. I'm going to do liver and fava beans with a nice Chianti. So I've never had liver before. We'll see how that goes.
There's like 5 things that I could say I do not like. That I can count on my fingers the things that I've eaten that I do not like, and liver is definitely one.
I've never had it, and everyone says the same thing as you. Everyone's like, no.
I tried to like it. My dad loved it. I tried to like it. I just couldn't get over the liver.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. What's going to be fun is like I'm a home chef. So it'll be fun just to figure out how.
Gary, you need to work your way up to eating a face. That would be
small. You gotta build.
You stay hungry, Gary. You stay hungry.
They sell cow face.
Hungry is eating
actually sell cow face, like the head, and people eat the face.
The part that I like the food that of all foods that just makes me feel sick thinking about it was when I ate tripe and I was at a friend's 16th birthday party in high school.
Menudo, right?
And their mom was like, try menudo, and I'm like, yeah, of course.
That's
and
all right.
And my friend was like, are you sure, dude? And I'm like, yeah. And then while I'm eating it, I'm like, what's this weird kind of spongy? It feels kind of weird. It feels like a bunch of spores. They're like, oh, that's cow intestine. I was
have you ever had cow tongue?
I have not had cow tongue.
I've never done cow tongue.
It's super, super good. I'm telling you.
I'm going to try it because there's a hole in the wall taco place not far from me where I was going to go and get beef cheek tacos, and they have tongue as well. So I'll get both.
That sounds like the worst male stripper dancer name ever.
Beef cheek taco. Beef cheek taco is look. You know what? He's smarter than you think. He's got actually a college degree.
Ladies and
gentlemen, the reason his cheeks are named beef.
Ladies, put your hands together for beef cheek
taco. He returns every Tuesday night, ladies.
It's Taco Tuesday.
Beef cheek.
So my
Frank
mom
made the inevitable menudo joke, which I have to put on the screen. He said, "I love menudo." Great song.
So my mom was just to sidetrack this. My mom was preparing tongue when I was 6 years old, and she was preparing tongue, and it was on the cutting board, and she turned her back, and it was a whole tongue. It was boiled.
Hold on, just a second.
Yes,
I tell a completely innocent story about a pump in the desert. Jim Lujan says the phrase, "My mom was preparing tongue." And everyone just sits there. Yes,
let it go.
Carry on.
So because that's
pointing out the hypocrisy here.
Because we don't bring family into it.
You're telling your story uninterrupted, Jim.
But
family. It's his mom.
This is family.
Hey, talk about my mom. Hey, so when she turned her back though, and the tongue was on the cutting board, I took a big bite out of the tongue, and because it was boiled, all of the taste buds came off, and she turned around and she stabbed me in the neck with a knife. That's the end. The end.
That's when you died.
And
Nah,
that
I
was
died.
when you crossed from hunger to desperation and you
Yeah.
got stabbed.
Yeah.
And then you
Yes.
left.
Because you boil it to get the skin off, right? I think that's the process. I'm
Yeah,
actually being serious. I think I
so,
watched
yeah.
how to do that. Yeah.
I'm curious, man.
Hey, that cow ain't gonna take its own tongue out of there. But it's fantastic.
I'm doing it this weekend. You've inspired me. I'm going.
Cow
I'm
tongue
going
is
again.
a cow tongue burrito is like the best thing.
Okay.
That does
It's so
sound
good.
kind of interesting.
It actually really
I'd
is.
try it once.
So
my rule with food is always try something.
My
new.
dad used to have this joke. He used to say, my uncle would say, I'm not going to eat anything that came out of a cow's mouth. Now give me some eggs.
Wow.
Think about it. You got to think about it.
That reminds me of my 4 nuns at the gates of heaven joke. We'll tell that after the show.
Yes.
I love it. Speaking of after the show, we've been going for like an hour and 30 minutes. I feel like we hit the topic.
Yeah, because we circled to tongue.
Yeah.
I mean,
And now
we're
we're
going from priming pumps in the desert.
priming pumps and mom's preparing her tongue.
And now we're getting desperate.
Now we're
Yes.
getting desperate.
There we
We're
go.
just filling time. Just filling it. Just
But I actually feel like I think it is a relevant topic and it's a good topic to bring up.
It is.
As you're out there kind of pursuing stuff, the more you kind of pursue ambitions, like the more you kind of are going to be straddling that line. And I think it's important to try to be aware of, and also to try to check yourself on, like as an artist, like, am I being desperate here or am I just being hungry? Right. It's a good question to ask yourself, because if it's desperate, maybe hold back a little bit. Right. But yeah, thank you to everybody who joined. Jim, Gary, it's awesome having you guys on. Why don't we do a once around and let people know where to find our work and all that fun stuff. So we'll start with you, Jim. Where can everybody find your work, and where can they support you on Patreon?
Go to jimlujan.com to watch my films. That'll take you to my YouTube channel. And then all of my patrons, thank you. And if you're a patron at any level, you get to see previews of things, including some previews and the full film of Pleasure Beast coming out really soon. First on Patreon, and then the rest of the world will get to see it later on. I'm very desperate to become my patron. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, by the way, I just want to say for the record, I didn't make fun of Cory's pump story. I'm sorry. I'm sorry those mean boys did that.
And thank you for the priming that pump story, Jim.
Wow.
So Gary, where can everybody find your stuff? Oh, by the way, before we go to Gary, I do want to mention, just selfishly, I want you guys to check out Pleasure Beast. I did a voice for it. I'm very excited about this animation, and Jim's cartoons are hilarious. So you guys should all be supporting them
And
anyway.
the next preview clip, and you'll get to see it, Josh, but the next preview clip will be one of your scenes, actually. So on Patreon.
Oh.
There's a teaser, you guys. So go check it out if you want to hear me be a cool pastor. All right.
I didn't
Gary.
realize Pleasure Beast was so close. Did you say end of this month or early next? Was that what I heard?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Very
It's a long film.
What was that?
It's a long film.
How long? Do you have a?
It's gonna be it's gonna be like 25 minutes or something like that. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Very
It's a pretty
good.
long film. I know. I didn't. Yeah.
So in the same amount of time that I did a 4-minute music video, you did a 25-minute animation.
Jim, this is a huge compliment coming from the best animator
of our generation.
Great, right.
I'm never coming back on this show.
Speaking of best animator of our generation, let's let everybody know where to find the best comic about dinosaurs fighting Martians on the planet. Gary, where can everybody find
I was
that
rated
and
one of
follow
the
you?
finest indie comic creators in the eastern edge of the Papago Park area of Phoenix. So you can find me right now. You can follow me on Instagram, Dinosaurs vs. Marsbots, Dinosaurs vs. Marsbots. I'm sold out of comics right now, but very soon, if you're following me on Instagram, you'll be able to see exclusive covers being revealed very soon, probably in the next week, maybe, something like that. You can follow me on YouTube, Gary Hodges. You'll know my icon. It's a little dinosaur eating an alien. And brand new, you can find me on Redbubble. You can find different merch with my art on it. Just look for D versus M. Stuff will pop up, and you'll be able to find me that way. And thanks for having me on.
I love it. Always awesome having you on. Also, just you were mentioning merch, and Jim rarely ever mentions this. I do want to mention Jim has a Society 6 store where you can get pillows and mugs and all sorts of cool animation stuff too. So make sure you're supporting these guys and getting some merch. We're desperate for that merch. All right, Cory, where can everybody find your work, see sneak previews of the stuff you're working on, all of that?
Go to CoryKerr.com. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So YouTube and Instagram are probably where I primarily do things. And I am considering doing a Substack. So that might be a thing that I'm getting into.
Cory, when is any idea when the music video will be like officially released by the band?
The band is talking to several promoters that are collaborating on the best marketing strategy. So to me, that sounds like an eternity of decision by committee that will never happen.
So if they put it out themselves on any platforms, does that disqualify it from festivals?
So I think music videos are different. Most of the I've submitted to 47 music videos or festivals for that music video, and none of them had rules that were like, it's got to be a private, whatever. So I think it's a different thing than short films. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, I will be very excited for people to watch it. So I'm sure I will talk about it for at least a day or two when it goes live. So
yeah, that's a super impressive video, man.
Is that dog hungry or desperate?
Desperate.
I just hope that wasn't one of his kids, was it? That's not good parenting, Scott.
Just huddled off camera going,
We're hungry, Dad.
All right. Well,
sorry. I will say this. I was doing this during the last couple of minutes. I was just notified. This is funny. I was just notified that I won another award for Put Your Heart Into It. So I had to update all the world. So if you want to watch that, which apparently is still doing festivals, I guess, from like everything opening up after the pandemic.
That dog's pumped.
Yeah, that's still available. If you want to watch that, you can go to CoryKerr.com and watch that on there.
I absolutely love that. And if you guys check out like Cory's social media posts about Put Your Heart Into It too, you'll notice like the laurels are like the coolest laurels I've seen, and I'm not kidding. Like, actually check out what the laurels are because they're related to the cartoon. So go check it out. It's very cool.
Thank you.
I love it. All right.
Congratulations, Cory. That's cool.
That is huge, man. And you know what's funny is it almost doesn't faze me because of the amount of the sheer overwhelming, stunning amount of awards you've won for that. Yeah. There it is. Look at those laurels.
You can only win two. We can only win 3 more awards, Cory, and then you're going to.
I need to submit to 3 more festivals just so that
you can fill it out.
Rounds it out. My OCD can be satiated.
It looks like kills on the side of a World War II plane or something.
That's how I view it. Each one of these festivals is somebody that I've killed.
You got it. You nailed them.
Cory,
I'll never forget you.
Are you resting on those laurels?
I wish. I tried to build a chair out of 3D sculpted or 3D printed bug leg laurels, and it was just really uncomfortable. So I don't know.
He's got those tattooed on his leg.
Yeah, I tattoo them on on the underside of my legs, and then I do rest on them. That's how that works.
There you go.
Actually, you might want to consider just like having them as marks on your Wacom, like on your pen.
Right.
Yeah. You need like a decal just on the side of your car, like just I said, like kills, like shoot downs.
Yeah,
that's true.
Because all of that would make me feel very comfortable and not desperate at all.
Because you're that type. You're that type. That showy, flashy, ostentatious. Right.
What you guys can't see is that if I were to rip my shirt open right now, I've got them tattooed across my chest, right under something that says "Please like me more."
Yeah. Justifiably, ladies and gentlemen, we've just heard from the greatest animator in the universe. That definitely make sure you guys are following that. No, Cory disappeared.
He couldn't take it anymore.
All right, so if you guys are after you've watched Cory's animation, after you've checked out Gary Hodges' stuff, after you've watched Jim Lujan's animations, and you need like a little less levity, and you want to read something heavy and dark and slice of life, go pick up 2 stories. Book 1, you can get it on Amazon for a reduced rate. And I am desperate for I'm hungry for your order. But yeah, so you can get free shipping, and it's a pretty good read. So I feel good about it, and you guys should check it out. Scott, where can everybody go? I know before you tell them like how to subscribe and all that stuff, I am wondering what to do for free comic book day. If I'm in Arizona, where should I be?
Yeah. So, Free Comic Book Day is this Saturday. No matter where you are, get out to your local comic book store. If you happen to be in Arizona, Gary Hodges, come out to Surprise Comics. Come say hi to me, and I'll be doing sketches. And I've got books for sale. I'll be doing remarks, and I'll also be there with Eric Henson, Albert Morales, and Derek Tipton, some other awesome artists. So, and it's a brand new. They just expanded to a larger suite, so they got twice as much room, brand new store. So definitely come out and check them out. And like I said, I'll be there all day. And free comics, how can you go wrong? So if you're in Arizona, come out to come out to Surprise Comics. Wherever you are, if there is a local comic book store near you, go out and support them and get some free stuff while you're there. And besides that, we do this show every single week. The guests rotate. Sometimes we have a full house like we do tonight. Sometimes we just have one extra guest, but whoever it is, it's always going to be awesome. If you want to know who our guest is, if you want to know what channel it's going to be on, because it switches back and forth from Josh's channel to my own channel, it gets a little confusing, but if you don't want to be confused, all you have to do is click on the link in the description of this video. I don't know what's going on. Just click on the link in the description of this video, and you'll be prompted to go to or just sign up to our mailing list. We don't spam you or anything like that. We just alert you guys usually about 30 minutes before we go live, what channel we're gonna be, all that stuff, who the guest is, what the topic is, because YouTube doesn't always let people know. Do you guys all have questions or what?
Tickling Cory, I'm tickling him. Tickle.
Oh, look how enormous my hand is.
Yeah.
That is huge. Wait, what are you doing?
Cory, let's do that, Cory.
Yeah. I can't figure out where you are.
Yeah, there you go.
I have no idea. Like, we have escalated the quality of Artcasters to the point where the special effects have blown the minds of anyone watching this.
Right.
Are we gonna have an after party after this?
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's in the mood to keep streaming.
I do love the idea of that. Maybe. All right. With that being said, thanks to everybody who showed up in the chats and all that fun stuff. And just remember, if you guys are out in the desert and you come across a strange pump, do not prime the thing. Don't
drink the water.
Run from that thing. All right, guys, have a good night, and we will see you on the next Artcasters. And thank you, Jim and Gary, just for being awesome guests, and I'm sure we'll have you back shortly. All right. Bye, guys. And Squatchy, I think we're heavily pleased by how horrifying our appearance will be on your comic. So
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
See you guys next time. Bye.